Bavaria, and then Augsburg, which is
Hmm.
probably the second largest city. Those are all the heart of Bavaria, and then getting closer and closer to the Alps.
Uh-huh. Okay. Yeah. So it's kind of an interesting journey. I found out Danish. So I'm German and Danish, and the rest of me is English and Scottish and some Irish. So
That's
I'm all
good.
mixed up. I'm all mixed up. But so Ryan, where are we at, bro? Can you there, Ryan? Okay, we're probably streaming, so I don't want to scream in everybody's ear. Ryan, can you say something or give me an indication how we're doing so we can start the show? Oh, that reminds me, I got to go get the beer. Hang on. All right, so we're streaming now? Yeah, you're online still for it. All right. All right. Shut the door, please. All right, he's streaming now. He says, go for it. So, you ready?
We're ready. Let's do it.
All right, that's good. So, countdown of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And I know some folks have already been watching. In fact, I got to get on my handy dandy thing here so that I can see everybody's comments. I didn't do that right away. Anyway, hi, everybody. It's Larry Lawson on the air with the Indian River Hauntings. And, you know, it's kind of a sad night for me because my partner in crime, Chris Huff, still down. If you guys, he says, go for it. So I am
Sorry.
I'm hearing something, an echo.
That was me. I turned it off.
Oh, it was you. Okay, I thought maybe it was Ryan. I was going to yell at Ryan. But so Chris is still sick, folks. So let's give a shout out to my buddy Chris. I've got a little tribute for him in a minute. We're gonna talk about. But to fill in for Chris, we are really lucky. My good friend Ike Enzi out in New Mexico, my brother law enforcement officer, he's joining us tonight. So Ike, say hi to everybody.
Hey, everybody. Hey, from
Hey,
the
and
Great Southwest.
yeah, we're going to be talking about the Great Southwest here, and bear with me as I get us up here on, because I want to be able to see everybody's comments. Subscribe live. We are 10.8, as we say. You use code, is it 10.8?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, let me turn now. I'm going to echo real out here. There we go. There we go. Bobby Garcia's out there. M18's out there. Good to see you. So I'll be monitoring everybody's comments tonight. And like I said, my buddy Ike Enzi's with us. So it's going to be a great night. We're going to be talking about everything paranormal. So if you're out there tonight, please ask us questions. Just type it on in. I'll see them. I'll get to them as quick as I can. Uh, Also, don't forget to hit subscribe. We are halfway through our mark. I'm just going to say that, halfway through our mark to be the drawing that we're going to have when we hit the mark. So we're about halfway there. Hit subscribe, hit like, and of course hit that little bell so that whenever there's new content out there, you're going to know about it. As always, going to do some shout outs. And I want to first talk about our dear friends, Nikki and Sherry up in Orlando, Florida. They own Doodlebug Dowsing. If dowsing is a part of your paranormal investigation, and I tell you what, I become a believer, Doodlebug Dowsing is the place to go. Just look them up on the internet, and you can find them. Doodlebug Dowsing out of Orlando, Florida. Want to say hi to as always, our dear friends in War Party Paranormal down there in West Palm Beach, Florida. Hi, Scotty, Zap, the whole gang down there, and they run a great little operation. And they have a thing that they do at what they call Yesteryear Village, the Riddle House. You may have seen it on some of the ghost shows. They are the exclusive investigators for the Riddle House down in West Palm Beach. So check that out. Our friends at the Marsh Landing Restaurant, the haunted Marsh Landing Restaurant in Fellsmere, Florida, will be doing a dinner and a ghost hunt there January 11th. So keep your eye out on our website, www.indianriverhauntings.com, to check out for our next dinner and a ghost hunt in Fellsmere. Driftwood Resort, another place that we do some of our tours. The Driftwood is haunted, and we love taking people through there. So I want to say hi to my friends there, Joe and Zach, that run the front desk. And, of course, Damien Freddy. Can't forget Damien Freddy, one of the best storytellers in all of England in York. He's at the Golden Fleece pub. So if you're in York, go see Damien Freddy for some of the best ghost stories you'll ever hear. I want to say once again hi to Bobby Garcia and M18. I hope Tank Destroyer. Hopefully we will see a couple more names up there. If you're listening, say hi so I can acknowledge you on that. And with that, Ike, old friend, you got some shout outs that you want to run with?
Sure. We're going to talk to Bobby Garcia. He was on one of my episodes. He's the judge, retired chief.
Oh, Your Honor. Thanks
he
for
was my
joining
chief.
us. Okay.
Hey, good guy. I'm glad he's here. And of course, shout out to all my New Mexico friends and my subscribers. I have subscribers from all around the world here, and I don't even know where they're all from. But shout out to those guys. Thanks for watching.
Good. Well, we've got some folks watching us in England. I know M18's out there, and there's going to be a few more that are popping out tonight. As always, our tradition, and I'm trusting you're not going to let me down tonight.
Maybe.
Beer challenge time. No, you're not going to let me down. And I actually was going to do another type of beer to honor my friends with German descent, but Chris is not with us tonight. How can I honor Chris not being here? And I decided a good English Scotch ale. This is McEwen's Scotch ale. You folks over there in Great Britain, let me know what you think. I have no idea. I've just cracked it open. I'm looking, see nobody's responded to McEwen's, so I'm going to give this a quick taste, and it'll be your turn, old friend.
Heck yeah. Anyway, Chris, I hope you're feeling better and getting better, man.
Yeah.
I enjoyed his last episode, the one he just aired last Monday, I think it was.
Thorpe Abbott's.
That was awesome.
That was awesome.
I couldn't turn it off. Anyway,
Yeah.
here's my juice for tonight. It's, of course, an IPA, and it's called Jucifer. And it's made in Colorado. It's a Belgian IPA, and it's 7.7% alcohol. I've never had it before. We'll find out.
Try
IPAs.
it. Yeah. Mine's 8. It's pretty mellow. It's pretty smooth for 8%. So give yours a try.
It tastes like an IPA.
It's funny. Voodoo Ranger's big down here too.
Is it?
Yeah, we see it all the time. I've almost pulled it on a couple times, but
it's actually a pretty good IPA. It's not overpowering, so it's not like the beer Judge Garcia brought us a couple of episodes ago. That was an ungodly 12%.
Yeah, man, I bow to you guys on that one. I think what's the highest I got was 9 or something.
Yeah, you can't really call that a beer anymore, I don't think.
Man, that's some heavy duty stuff. Where's your running partner tonight? Where's Christine?
She's right opposite of me. She's my tech support because we had a little technical issues.
Okay. Hey, Christine.
Hi, Christine.
Hi, how you guys doing?
Okay. M18 says McEwen's is much better than Boddington's. I know you were still a little under the weather last week, but I tried this English stuff called Boddington's. Worst, just terrible.
I watched the episode when I got back.
God, so, and we got Chelsea Worley. Hi, Chief Enzi. Must be one of your folks. Chelsea Worley said, "Hi, Chief Enzi."
Yeah.
So
hi, Chelsea.
So that's good to know. Yeah, Ike is about ready. When are you retiring, man?
My last day will be next Thursday.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
The new chief got sworn in last night, so I'm basically just shuffling papers around, but my last day will be next Thursday.
How many years?
Law enforcement 21, corrections 6, so 27 total.
Yeah, it's all the same. Yeah, I got my start as we talked about in the Dade County Jail. Thank you for your service, Chief. Salute you in your retirement, my friend.
Thank you.
But let's talk about our common bond other than law enforcement. It's everything and anything paranormal. Now, the one thing that I have found out, and I'm actually looking to, and if there's any other law enforcement folks out there, I'm really wanting to start an organization for folks in the public service realm that have an interest in the paranormal, have experienced the paranormal, or like you and I may be investigating it. Is it the same? I'm down here. It's amazing how many cops, firefighters, EMTs actually get involved in this line of work. Is it the same thing out in your neck of the woods?
Yeah, absolutely. And more so now than ever. Like I've mentioned before, This was kind of a taboo subject 10 years ago, maybe even 7 years ago. And now every cop, every firefighter, every EMT I talk to has a story. They've all had experiences.
I had a guy on one of my last Fellsmere. Was it? No, it was one of my last tours on the beach, and he came on, very stoic, very almost like he was going to challenge everything I say. Turns out he's a firefighter from Connecticut, and he started telling me the stories of stuff that happens in his firehouse, how they had a guy that died in the line of duty, heart attack type of thing, and he still hangs around the firehouse. And that's one place I've always particularly wanted to investigate, was a firehouse. I haven't done that yet. I don't know if you have.
Our firehouse is right next door to the PD, and it's lots of stories about that place. Everybody that works there says it's haunted. The chief says it's haunted. Everybody says it's haunted.
Anybody ever investigate it?
No, not legitimately. More like just recreational ghost hunters, as Chris would say.
Now, I've talked a lot about a lot of my stories here on the show. Here we go. Want to interrupt you a little bit here. Debbie Enzi, I don't know if you know her, said good evening to Ike, Larry, and Ike. I don't know if you know Debbie or not. So
I know her.
Sure. We acknowledged your other half.
Bobby said I'll get you guys a new one of his homebrews on his chat,
Oh,
and he makes
okay.
good homebrew. He does make good homebrew. I tell you that.
Cool. Why do you think so many of us find an interest in it? And what's your thoughts? I've got mine, but I'd like to hear yours.
I'm not sure, because some people are drawn to this at an early age, like I was. I've always curious with the paranormal from the day one. I remember. Some people get to it older, and as they get older, maybe it's just because time is, the clock is ticking. But there's more people now than ever. And I don't know if it's because of the ghost shows on television. It's made it more, mainstream, or maybe maybe because of social media, people communicate more now. There's definitely an uptick, and there's a lot more out there. And I think there's a lot more activity too now. Maybe all this activity is stirring stuff up.
Yeah, that was actually something I wanted to chat about too. My personal thought on the ghost shows, and Chris and I do not agree on this, and Chris is very old school. I think the shows have done a lot to bring it it made it not that taboo subject anymore, where people aren't afraid to talk about what happened to them. And let's see, Heather Landon, good to see you, Heather. Thanks for joining us tonight. So I think the shows have helped. I think it's also gotten some folks that have had an interest, didn't know where to go, and a lot of what I call the paranormal thrill seekers kind of go by the wayside after a little while. But I think it's also bred a new group of investigators that are serious about it and actually looking for the answers. My feeling is like I had nothing as a kid. Okay, I had an interest in UFOs and stuff just as passing, but I had no experiences as a kid myself. So I'm one of those other folks, unlike you, that had experiences early on. Mine started in the Dade County Jail. I've told that story several times. So when I was not an inmate, I was a corrections officer there. But that was my first experience. And of course, once I started looking into it, more things became obvious. But I think first of all, the shows have made it not so taboo anymore. So folks in our field and in the first responder field are feeling more comfortable about it. But I also think it's the fact that we deal with death all the time. We deal with the unknown. We deal with, when I first started off on the road down in South Florida, I was dealing with everything from Santeria, voodoo, Palamombe, all kinds of offshoot black magic type of religions. I certainly got involved in, seeing crazy things at night, as you have, and I want to hear some of those stories tonight. So I think it's just our exposure. And me personally, most of my career it was a detective, as a criminal investigator. To me, it's the greatest mystery of all time, and I'm searching to find the answer for it. So
absolutely.
I kind of think that getting rid of that taboo and just what we do for a living and what we face. I mean, you out in New Mexico, man, you guys have no backup. You're on your own a whole lot out there.
Yeah.
Here it's a little bit different. We don't have quite the same issue. So, most interesting experience you've had out there in New Mexico?
Oh, I've had many, but I just want to just real quick to change the
Oh,
subject. It
sure.
strikes me strange how me and you have strikingly similar employment history. Starting corrections,
Yeah.
law
Yeah.
enforcement, district attorney investigator, which you
Yeah.
were
Yeah.
also.
Yeah, I was.
That's pretty crazy. Uh, but besides that, I think the reason law enforcement and paramedics and EMTs encounter this stuff more, these are high energy events. The average person, will never come across what these guys come across.
Yeah.
You may be at a bad crash where really bad things have happened. There's a lot of energy in the air, and I think a lot of energy tulpas or conjures
Mm-hmm.
other energy. I really believe that because sometimes when you get into this intense state, things happen. And a lot of cops and a lot of cops are skeptics until that one thing happened. They may be 50 years old at that time, but then that one thing happens, and all of a sudden they're completely devoted, interested in the paranormal. They're like, "This happened. This can't explain it, and now I'm in. I want to know what's going on." And I know quite a few people like that.
Yeah,
And
actually.
other people grew up with that stuff.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, and I'm just thinking of a couple folks now that have come to me over the years and had, I mean, they were your typical young buck cops growing, and then now they're old like me, and they had something happen. They're like, there's more to this out here, more to this than I ever thought. Want to make a couple mentions here. Judge Garcia is talking about this is all becoming the norm. He says with all the TV shows and people coming out with their stories, it's becoming the norm. And Judge, I totally agree with you. And M18 talks about he was 4 years old when he started his interest in the paranormal. And he believes in all this. I'd love to hear your story sometime, M18. I bet you it's pretty interesting. But yeah, I think that energy and is really a huge part of it because a lot of the things that I've come across is residual stuff where that energy seems to be trapped in something, and then at a certain time when a certain chain of events occurs, it comes out like an old videotape. So I kind of agree with you with that energy issue completely.
Energy will attach itself to items. I know that out of firsthand experience. I have an old claim. I've got old artifacts dating back to the 1800s that I brought to my house. And some bizarre things have happened because of these artifacts. And in fact, just today, a person came to my office and he said he has a picture in his house. It's an old oil painting of a like Victorian era lady, and he wants it out of his house because he said ever since this picture come into the house, he doesn't like it. He gets a bad feeling about it. And I said, well, give it to me. I'll take it. I'll put it in my house.
Well, I'm going to kind of take a quick. I've got to talk to you about a police department in New Mexico. I'm going to come back to that in a second, but I want to go. You're talking about attachments, and you know who Brian Cano is? Are you familiar with Brian Cano? Yeah, he's been down here to Fellsmere. He was a speaker at one of our events, and for those of you that aren't familiar with Brian, brilliant man. I'm telling you, the amount of respect I have for him, I can't describe it. But he was the second in command on a show called Haunted Collector. John Zaffis was on that show, and Brian was down here, and his discussion about attachments and why that occurs is super fascinating. He also did a really cool experiment here, and you might, folks, if you haven't heard about this, look it up. It's called the Phillips experiment, where it talks about our own mind being a conduit to the other side. And he did an experiment here where he had a group of people in a room. They all thought of one word, banana. Concentrated, didn't say it, but concentrated everything banana, smell, looks, whatever. And then after they did that for a minute, they did an EVP session for I think about a minute, and they played the tape back then, and you heard the word banana. Mm-hmm. Interesting. So attachments, that's interesting stuff. Interesting stuff. Now, go ahead.
It's like some of my EVPs I've caught, and I've probably got 10 of them where the EVP will say what you or somebody else is about to say. It's almost like they're ahead of you. The most recent one I had was when me and Christine were up in a little town called Chama. We come across this old cemetery, and there's Civil War graves in the cemetery. Go back to 1840s even. And we're looking at this old tombstone, and Christine says, "I believe there's another one over there." And when I listened to the recording, I was recording it on my cell phone, just on a recorder. When I get back to my camper and I listen to it, before she says believe, another person says believe. Totally different voice. It sounds like a female,
Wow.
but there's an EVP that says I believe, and then there's about a 2 second gap, and then you hear Christine say, I believe there's another grave over there. So this thing, whatever this EVP was saying ahead of time of what Christine was about to say. And this has happened to me quite a few times. So can't explain that one.
Begs the question of kind of dimensional. I mean, are they able to see a little bit farther ahead?
Yeah.
That's
they may not.
Now, yeah, I mean, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I had an investigation. It was last Saturday night. We were at a place called LaPorte Farms, a place that was very active. And I walked in we were doing an active listening session. That's where we've got a spirit box going, and questions are being asked. And another person has a pair of headphones plugged into the ghost box, and they're listening away. They can't hear the questions. And as I walked up, because I'd seen something, I was watching the video cameras. I'd seen something that I had to ask a question about. So I walked in, and as I walked in, and it was Sherry from Doodlebug Dowsing. She's like this, not looking up. And as I walk up, she says, "Larry," had no idea it was even there, but something saw me, and it took us all by surprise. Real quick here, Heather talks about that we are finding. We are finding more clients are no longer afraid of what others might think. Yep, I agree with that. Debbie Enzi says you're twins from another life.
What?
Yeah, that's what she said. Okay. So
I'm obviously the better looking one.
I can't deny that. I'm also yeah okay. You got me on that one. So yeah, it's amazing. You sometimes wonder, can they see a little bit ahead in the future? Is it always going backwards? Is it sometimes in the future? I got to ask you this question. I've been dying to ask you about this when we've talked on the phone and whatnot, and I keep forgetting, but now I'm remembering it. About 5 years ago, there was a video that really hit the internet, and it was in New Mexico, and it was the police department, and the surveillance camera was out into the yard, the fenced-in yard where they put cars that were hauled in and stuff like that, all fenced in. And on that video, I don't know if you remember this or you ever saw it, is a figure walking through the fence and out again.
Right.
And they interviewed the cops. It was on the news. They did a news thing on it. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, it's a town north of us up in Española.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, it's legit. And of course, the debunkers will debunk anything, and they say it's a moth. If it's a moth, it has legs and a human shape, and it's walking like a human, because I've looked at that video many times. And I knew one of the police officers. He didn't see it, but he worked up there, and as far as they know, is caught on security camera, and that's it.
Have they? Have they ever had anything else happen up there? Was that ever not debunked, but was it explained? Did they have a car in there that was maybe involved in a fatal crash? Anything like that?
New Mexico and probably more so northern New Mexico is just one big haunted state place. Española has one of the most haunted hotels in the state. I mean, it's just old mental hospital up there. There's all kinds of stuff going on in Española. And I don't know, I want to say there was a ghost hunter group, and I don't know if it was one of the big shots from TV or something, but I know there's been people that have investigated it. But it's an old jail, so people died in that jail. There's stuff that happened, so.
Now, how far is that from you?
Española, probably about an hour and 15 minutes, hour and 20 minutes north.
Might be a good possibility, maybe, when we come to visit.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of places out here.
Now, folks, just to kind of let you know, Chris and I have talked about the fact that Indian River Hauntings is going to be taking a tour to England, and we're setting that up. Probably it'll be a year from this summer, because we want to make sure we get it done right, and we provide folks with a very, very broad spectrum of English ghost hunting. But Mr. Enzi is going to also be hosting us out there. We're going to be working on that in the near, not too distant future. So we're going to be taking a group out to New Mexico to see some of the old Southwestern American haunts. So stay tuned for that. And this guy I'm talking to right here is the man to do it. So keep your eyes peeled for that on IndianRiverHauntings.com because it's coming. In fact, we're going to be talking about that more shortly. Let's see, who else we got here? Larry, this is from M18. Have you heard any stories from other law enforcement people over ghost sightings over the years? Oh, God. That's a great segue into some of the stuff that we've seen. I'll let you start with this one. What other officers have you spoken to that have seen something they can't explain?
I couldn't even name them all. It just, yeah, I can't even put a number on that. Even in my early law enforcement days, there's always been one or two other officers that have the same interest and the same beliefs, and we go out and do stuff and find stuff. But even the hardest of skeptics would come up to me and say, something pretty strange happened to me yesterday. And they're like, oh, I don't know what to think about this because I don't believe in this stuff, but this is what happened. Happens all the time.
Well, people don't realize we're out in the middle of the night when it's quiet. I mean, and there's nothing else going on, and we see things. A story comes to mind. I'm not gonna mention his name, but his initials are Tim Crooker. Good friend of mine. Hope you don't mind, Tim. He's now up in Washington State as a cop, but old friend of mine, and our kids grew up together and whatnot. He was a deputy sheriff here in Indian River County, and he responded to a call one night at a place called the Hallstrom House. Now, the Hallstrom House is one of the oldest buildings in our county, and it's probably the home of the Historical Society, for a lack of a better description. Wonderful old place. He responded to a alarm there one night and saw somebody inside, heard him running up the stairs. The door was open and he went. There was nobody in the entire building. And that's what made him a believer. And there was another building he even walked into one time. He heard people talking, but it was empty. It was abandoned. So these are the types of things, M18, that we run into all the time, going to alarm calls, seeing and hearing things that we just can't explain. And sometimes our brother and sister officers will say, it's just my imagination. Other times, oh, no, we know what we saw. So I think that's the best way for me to describe it.
You have to be kind of open-minded. Some people that have, that are steadfast in their beliefs tend to explain everything off. And then there's a lot of people, their face is stuck in the phone all day long and they don't pay attention to anything. So you have to be a little bit open-minded to see things. I remember from when I was a rookie, and my training officer used to always say, you see a lot of crap. And I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, you're always noticing things, simple things. And I'm like, it's because I'm looking around. It's kind of our job. But there's a lot of people that don't look around. They don't ever look up. People say, well, do you ever see a UFO? I'm like, yeah, I've probably seen 3 or 4 UFOs in my days as a cop. Well, I've never seen anything. That's probably because you never look up. You're too busy just working.
Well, and see, I think that's another reason why we're so much in tune to it, because we're trained to look. We're trained to see things out of the ordinary that aren't catching the normal person's eye. That's what we do. I mean, I'm an old retired fart person now, excuse me, but I still catch myself looking around at the school that I'm out now. My head's on a swivel. I'm always looking for something out of place. So I think that's another reason why we probably see things the average person doesn't.
Well, it's a powerful drive that makes you do and act the way you do as a police officer, because basically it's you don't want to die. There's bad people out there and they are after you, and you get that drilled into your head from the academy. Yeah. So it's a strong urgency. It's a strong sense that you develop. Like, I don't want to die. Nobody's going to get the drop on me because I'm going home tonight. Well, so you're always looking around.
You talked about a story about you just decided not to stop a car one night, and I've been in the same boat. 3 o'clock in the morning, your gut's telling you something's not right. And like I said, our situation, especially when I was on the road down south, our backup was all of 30 seconds away because we would turn out 15 guys and 20 guys in a shift, right? Well, you just feel like something's not right, and you stop, and sure enough, when your backup gets there, the guy's got a loaded gun in his lap or something like that. I mean, Chris always teases me because I feel like I'm as sensitive as a rock. But, being in this business, you just get that sixth sense and could it be somebody talking to us and say, "Yo, Larry, wake up"?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I think you're in such a concentrated state that you're tapping into other things because I don't know which episode it was, but I mentioned several of those incidences that happened to me and other officers where basically the sixth sense probably saved your butt that night.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
the traffic stop that you mentioned, it was probably 40 miles away from the nearest municipality in the middle of nowhere in the desert. And cops are like dogs. We're trained to chase. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm just driving down this. I'm driving down this 2-lane road in the middle of nowhere, and there's a car coming towards me. I look at my radar, and it's reading like 115.
Ooh.
That triggered the chase instinct. Lights come on. I make a U-turn. I catch up to him, pull him over. And it's a Cadillac with Illinois plates. There's 4 guys in there, and they're shuffling around. All I see is heads bobbing around. And literally, I had such an overwhelming sense. The hairs on my arms are standing up. I was tingling. I could feel it in the back of my neck. I was tingling.
Mm-hmm.
And something told me if I approach this car, this is not going to end well. And backup was, at least 45 minutes away for the nearest unit, 45 minutes, maybe an hour. And I had such an overwhelming sense. I pretended I had something more important to do, and I left my lights on, made a U-turn, and continued going, the direction I was heading. And for years, I felt really bad about it. You're a coward. What the heck's up with that? Don't be doing that. And then, as the years progressed, I became a training officer. I'd tell that story, and it seems like every cop I know has done this in the past. Everybody has had that feeling.
It's happened to all of us where something is just telling you don't do it. Don't go around that corner.
Yep.
Wait for your backup to get here. So I totally get it. And excuse me, I guess you don't really understand it until you've been there. So I totally get that. Got to cut. Debbie says that we blacked out for a second. Is there?
That's probably the ghost in my house.
Yeah, that's exactly what she said. Hey, Spanky Maxwell. Now, here's a good friend of mine, Mike Maxwell out there. He's a retired firefighter. He was, when I was running the police academy here in this region of Florida, Mike was in the fire academy, and we shared basically the same facility. Here's a guy with some interesting stuff and was not a believer. He came to one of our events. I've known Spanky for what? Spanky, how long have I known you? Maybe what, 20 years I've known you, Spanky, and you've always been very, very straightforward. His wife gets him to come to one of our events. He's hooked, and now now the guy is excellent. So I just wanted to make mention of old Spanky out there. He's a retired firefighter, and he's gotten some outstanding stuff on our investigations. But yeah, that whole sixth sense there is something that you just got to wonder, is it just our training? Or is it really something tapping into the other side?
I think this is something we've all had 1,000 years ago, and we've de-evolved from feeling that way. Because the old sayings, you never feel more alive than when you're closest to death.
Oh my God, how true.
When you're
yeah.
approaching a car in the middle of the night, you're getting pretty close to that point, and your senses are tingling, and you're tapping into something that probably many, many years ago we've had, and people have just don't use that anymore. But I think everybody has that capability.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's just I want to ask you. Got somebody else popped up here. In fact, the chief said his was in the middle of Moriarty on the graveyard shift. He was the only cop in the whole county at the time. And so yeah, Judge, I guess so. Yeah, the good old days. And Spanky says we've known each other. It's been 30 years already, Spank. Oh my God, we're both getting old, buddy. So yeah, I mean, you can't really explain it unless you've been there and developing that sixth sense. Forgot, my mind just went blank. I was going to head somewhere else. Most pronounced, and I know folks have heard it, and I want to put this plug into. If you haven't heard Ike yet, see him on YouTube, IDK Paranormal. I've talked about him on the show before. Make sure you go on over to check that out and like his channel also. He's got some pretty cool gifts, silver nuggets from the mines out there. So if you don't mind me plugging that.
Nope, we like silver.
So go on over there, like and subscribe to his channel. But you've talked about some of your stories on your channel. Some of the folks on this channel have not heard some of the things that have happened to you out there. Take a second, if you don't mind, to kind of relate probably the most profound paranormal experience you had on the job.
Hmm. There's many, and they're all a little different. I've had everything from weird lights in the sky to oh, it's just I've just had a lot of experiences, but probably the most profound and the scariest that really shook me to the core that I can think of is our sheriff's department in Torrance County. It was old. It was built in the, I think, late 50s, because the one prior to that burned down. And that was the place they had the last execution, indoor hangings. They hanged three guys in there, and this was the last execution in New Mexico by hanging.
Mhm.
And that place was just haunted. We all knew it was haunted. In fact, rule of thumb was, I was a sergeant already, and rule of thumb was at nighttime, no deputy went to the SO by himself.
Mm.
Always teamed up with a partner, because I'm not kidding. The cell doors would slam, toilets would flush, sink would turn on. You'd hear people talking. It was a normal event. You just didn't go there by yourself.
Mhm.
So I'm the sergeant, and I was the last one to go in. It was 3:30 in the morning, or it's 2:30 in the morning, and my partner forgot to turn in his timesheet, and he was getting off at 2:30 in the morning. And he goes, "Hey, Sarge, can you do me a favor? And, I forgot to do my timesheet. Can you run it back to the SL and drop it off?" And I'm like, "Oh, God. All right, I guess." So I
You're the
got it back.
sergeant. You can't say no.
Like, no, turn your own timesheet in. But no, I did it. So as I'm heading down to the SL, I go to the deputy's entrance. And keep in mind, this is like an old building, and it used to be a jail. And the old jail cells have the Folgers keys, those big brass keys and stuff.
Right. Remember him
That hasn't
well.
been used. Hasn't been used in years. And that's the deputy's entrance in the back. And I pull up, and as I'm pulling up, once again, the sixth sense kicks in. I am tingling. I am scared. Not gonna lie. I'm like, something's not right. So I'm like, heck with this. I'm gonna go in through a front entrance, the admin entrance. So I pull my unit around and go to the front doors, and it's two big glass doors, typical building entrance. And I even park my unit so the headlights shine into the glass doors, because I just knew something was wrong.
Yeah.
And so I enter through that front door, and there's a long, skinny hallway. And to the left is the sheriff's department, and further down was a treasurer and the clerk and all that stuff, and that's where we dropped off our timesheet. So I'm going down this hallway, and I can't even explain how electrified I felt. It was really scary. And suddenly, one of our cell doors slams shut, and these are steel, heavy, old school doors, and it's like thunder. It's like, bam! And it scared me so bad that the next thing I remember, I'm on my knees, and I got my 45 out, and I'm like hyperventilating. I'm hyperventilating. I'm against the wall, and I'm like, and I'm trying to clear the building. I'm like, what in the heck was that? There's nobody in those buildings at night, and we don't keep prisoners there. Luckily, about 4 steps down the hall, I slipped a timesheet under the door, tactically retreated backwards, got back in my unit, and I was literally just shaking. That's how bad that scared me. And I called up the deputy. I'm like, "I'll never do that again. Drop off your own damn timesheet." But that was pretty scary. There was
Well,
something strong enough to slam cell doors, and we knew, and I believe there are evil entities out there. They may not be human. I don't know what they are, but there are some out there that can make you sick, or they're evil, and some of them are residual. They just do the same thing over and over. Whatever was in there doing that stuff
yeah.
was not nice.
See, quick sidebar for a second, man. Isn't that what this is all about? You've got evidence of an evil entity. You've got something happening right in front of you, yet you've got also residual stuff. We talk about evil entities, maybe non-human. Man, if that's not enough to get an old investigator wanting to find the answers,
Yeah.
I don't know what does, man. Get in there. Let's start sorting this stuff out. We've come so far yet. We got so far to go to figure out what a lot of this stuff is. By the way, Judge Garcia, it's Ryan coming out here. By the way, Ryan says hi to everybody, but he does not have a microphone, so you're not hearing from him. But I will show you this. Okay, this is what Ryan's drinking. He didn't like it at all. Dragon's milk. I like it. This is 11. I think I had this on one of the shows. This is 11, not quite a 12.
I think I've tried that before.
Yeah, it's a taste. Well, anyway, Chief, how about the 10-7 that didn't want to be photographed with KC?
Yeah, actually, that's going to be one of my newer episodes coming up pretty soon. So let's just say we had a natural cause death. And, as in any death, you treat it as a homicide going in.
Well, don't go too far if you want to save it for your show. Okay.
Yeah, but let's just say some really bizarre things happened that was witnessed not just by me, but Casey, who was an officer, and 2 paramedics that were there, and OMI that showed up.
So if you want to hear more about this story, folks, IDK Paranormal, Is it coming up on the next episode?
Not next episode. It'll be a couple episodes down the road still.
Okay. Well, that means you guys got to watch all the shows prior to it. So keep an eye out if you want to hear the rest of the story in IDK Paranormal. I know that's gonna be good.
I just want to mention, for the skeptics out there or people that don't believe in this, we have an OMI out here, medical investigator, death medical investigator, and I think he's been the longest in the state. He's probably got 37 years he's been doing this job. Wow. Fascinating guy. He was out here. He's probably seen literally 10,000 deaths. And out here, I don't know how it works in Florida, but out here, whenever you have a death, OMI comes out, takes possession of the body, and kind of get cause of death type thing, and then bag it, tag it, and EMTs will haul it off to the mortuary. But it's his body. So this guy has literally seen, I can't even guess how many bodies, but I've been to so many calls with him. So one day I asked him, and he's an elderly gentleman, and I said, do you believe in ghosts? And he just looks at me and goes, I'm looking around like, what do you mean? He goes, you know what I'm talking about. And he sat down with me. I was a DA investigator at the time, and he sat down with me, and he told me some of the most fascinating stories. He is a firm believer in the afterlife. And, if he believes in that stuff, who deals with this every day, there's got to be something to it.
Interesting story. I had a doctor. I was doing a tour one time. This was in Fellsmere, and this group was with us, and this guy was really stoic, very, very professional looking. I'm thinking, oh God, he's, you'll see him on the tours one time. They just don't believe any of it. The end of the tour gets here, and the guy walks up to me, introduces himself, and as a doctor, and I'm like, okay. Then he proceeds to tell me a story about he was a young intern in Colorado, and he was in the ER. Guy came in with a severe belly wound, gonna die. They couldn't stop the bleeding. They couldn't keep this guy alive. They call in the on-call thoracic surgeon, who gets in there and saves the guy's life. Now, bear in mind, while they're working on him, this person is completely unconscious. He's totally out of it because his gut's hanging open, right? About 6 months later, this doc was working, and the victim came in to the hospital to say, hey, wanted to thank everybody for what they did saving my life. And what about that doctor, that funny looking doctor with the glasses? And this gentleman says, oh, what did he look like? And he described him. And he described him to a T. And he says, how did you know that? You were completely unconscious. He was long gone before you woke. He said, I was sitting up in the corner of the ER looking down as you guys were working on me. So even the hardest skeptics become believers in stuff like this. So I
found a lot of people in the healthcare professions, nurses and doctors and stuff. Most of them are believers. They may not come out and tell you, but most of them have all had their own experiences. Once
again, because of all the things that have happened. Now, I'm going to tell a story for the first time. I've never told it to anybody. And this happened once I retired from running the police academy. I went back into police work full time. I've told you that. And I was the detective out in good old Fellsmere. And I was working one night, and I hear a loud crash. Now, the police department sits right next to the old school in Fellsmere, which is now City Hall. And I could spend hours talking about the haunted incidents in there. I walk into the locker room, the officer's locker room. A glass that was secured to the wall had come away from the wall 3 feet past the counter, flat down on the ground. Now, we'd had all kinds of issues happening in there, and the guys just blew it off. But this mirror came off the wall, 3 feet past the counter, boom, down. How do you explain stuff like that? I mean, if you just can't, and that's my point. So
if it's different dimensions, then nothing makes sense. Because you always hear this, if a ghost can go through walls, what keeps him from falling through the floors? How can he be in a second-story building if he can walk through walls? Realistically, he should be falling through the floors and be in the basement, and presumably go through a basement and just continue going. Who knows?
And it's funny when I talk to Chris. And Chris is one of the most honest individuals I've ever met in my life. Spirit Research Northeast, for those of you that don't know his site.
Awesome.
One of the most honest, genuine people I've ever met. He'll tell you flat out, he doesn't know. He's a medium. He doesn't even know how it happens. He doesn't even know a lot of the answers. once again, old detectives like you and I, doesn't that get your juices flowing, wanting to figure out what the heck this is? I mean,
Yep.
that's where I get my motivation anyway.
Yep. Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
Tonto Stackens
Yep. That's one of my
says,
buddies.
sorry he's late, but he's on and listening. And M18 is back on. He's saying in Scarborough, North Yorkshire, in the UK in 1964, a nurse on night shift witnessed the ghost of an old female patient walking the hospital ward who died 2 previous nights. Once again, going back to the doctors, nurses, EMTs, they're always seeing stuff like that. And I'd like to read more about that story, M18. Thank you. I'll look. Is that M18? Is that one somewhere where I could find it on the internet, do you think? Because I'd like to read more about that one. So, yeah, just the crazy things that are happening out there, and we're so far from the answers. Now, what kind of equipment do you use when you're doing your work? What's your equipment of choice?
We're kind of traditionalists, and it's probably monetarily based.
Yeah.
But I have millimeters and IR cameras, um, lots of recorders. I love dowsing rods. I've been dowsing. My dad used to douse, but he
Really?
used willow sticks. It had to be willow, and he used the Y in a Y shape. And
Right.
his dad taught him how to do it. He's an old hillbilly, and it's what they used to do.
Uh-huh.
So that's kind of where I think I got that from. But I use copper rods, and they're incredibly accurate. It just blows me away in detecting energy. And
Yeah,
I've done double blind tests. I have an electric cable buried in the yard, and I gave them to my son many years ago. He was like 9 years old. He didn't know where the line is buried, and he would walk with the rods in front of him, and right above the rod where the line is buried, they would cross. Now I give them to my daughter, same thing. They definitely detect energy. Um,
and
it's good stuff.
that absolutely gives credence to the theory that ghosts are residual energy of those that have passed before us. So I think that gives that a whole lot more credence. Yeah, we use dowsing rods ourselves. In fact, that's probably our most successful tool. My son Evan, you haven't met him. Evan is gifted. Evan has the ability, if you get my drift.
Mhm.
He can see some stuff on the other side. When he uses dowsing rods and we use it in connection with like millimeters and other pieces of EMF detecting equipment, oh my God, it's amazing the information that he gets. Spanky is also a whiz with them. Mike Maxwell, who's on with us right now, he's superb with them. So I agree that the Evan likes the rods because he says it's you and the other side. There's no
Yes,
wires or anything else involved. So
I totally agree.
that's why he likes it.
Yeah, I totally agree.
They don't
And
work for me at all.
they're they work for me. And their energy. There's a reason your hair and your arms stand up. That's static electricity. There's a reason your batteries die when you just put them in your equipment, and they're good batteries, and
Oh
suddenly your
yeah.
batteries are drained. So clearly, these guys are feeding off energy and they're emitting energy, and that's what you're feeling. That's what I believe, and I also believe there are places in this world that are more energy, especially mineral-rich areas. They
Oh
say
yeah.
limestone. We don't have a whole lot of limestone here, but like where my claim is at, that's a
Oh yeah.
mineral-rich area. There's silver, gold, lead, all kinds of stuff in the ground. Super haunted. I mean, you can go up there and you just sense it. I think wherever there's minerals, gold is a good conductor of electricity, obviously. Uh,
Yeah.
those areas, just you can feel it. You can
Well,
just
they
feel
make
it.
quartz watches. They make
Quartz, yeah.
timepiece. Yeah. And once again, that collection of energy. So I think that if we continue to concentrate on that, we might have a whole lot more luck. I'm also a big believer. I don't know how you like it, but ITC, instrumental transcommunication, whether it be EVPs, whether it be computers, stuff coming in through white noise. I think that's also another area that we're going to be successful, and we employ that stuff quite a bit ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Like spirit boxes.
yeah. Now I got to admit, I'm not a big fan of the Ovulus. Are you familiar with the Ovulus?
That's the one that spells out, right?
Yeah,
That's the
it's
one that
got a
spells out.
bank, a list, bank of words.
Yeah.
Some people swear by it, and far be it for me to say it doesn't work because hell, I don't know.
It would
But
take a lot to convince me. Being investigators, cops like we
yeah,
are, would it stand up in
yeah,
a court of law? This thing has a bank of probably 50,000 words in it, and it's a
exactly.
random word generator. So
Well,
it'd have to tell me a lot of stuff before I'd really buy into it.
I'll tell you what, I was not so sure about spirit boxes. You're catching radio signals, for God's
Mhm.
sake, how could that be? Well, our friends War Party Paranormal, this is about 2-3 years ago now, came down from came up from West Palm Beach, and they brought a portal, real similar to what the guy Huff does. Um, Not Chris Huff, but another.
Jason is it Jason
Uh,
Huff?
no,
I know who you're talking about.
yeah, real similar. And we took it into what we call the choir room in the old school. And there were 7 of us in there. And okay, I'm listening because I'm real skeptical at this point. It just didn't make sense to me. The cop in me just said, "How could this be?" So they get their portal going and they're asking questions. How many are in here? 7. Okay. How many are in here? Well, 8, including. How many are in here, including you? 8. Okay, that's interesting. Can you tell us who's in here? Mention some names. Some are right, where some are wrong. So I then thought I'd be a smart aleck. I said, okay, tell me where we're at. Now, you got to understand, Fellsmere is a small town in the middle of northwestern Indian River County. Very small, 5,000 people. A couple seconds went by, and that portal said Fellsmere. Now, if it was a
Yeah.
radio station, if you heard Orlando, Tampa, Miami, you wouldn't think much of it. But the dang thing said Fellsmere. So I'm like, whew, okay. I waited a couple more minutes and I said, where did you say we were? Second time, clear as a bell, Fellsmere. That's
Yeah,
when I began to, yeah.
it's not a
I mean,
coincidence anymore.
that was really a significant turn for me in thinking that this might be a real answer. So that's one of my favorite tools is along with the EMF stuff, the rods. I like using spirit boxes, ITC type stuff. So
I'm still a huge fan of EVPs because it's simple and anybody can do it, and it's so unexplainable. If you yourself catch an EVP and you're by yourself and there's no outside contamination, and you catch a Class A EVP, that just blows you away. It just, how do you explain that?
God, we got one the other night that said we were in a building and it had a fire back in the 30s, and there used to be an old zoo attached to it, and it was our local heritage center, community center, and the person in charge was in there, and I won't bore you with the whole investigation, but they start asking, do you know if anybody died during the fire? And you got this low guttural sound, clear as a bell. Alice.
Oh God.
Well, who's Alice? Turns out right back in the 30s, next to the Heritage Center, was a zoo. Now, I don't know if this had anything to do with it or not, but the zoo had a bear. The bear's name was Alice.
Wow.
I don't know if that had anything to do with it or not, but yeah, EVP, we've gotten some pretty significant stuff using EVPs, instrumental transcommunication, anything to do with radio waves. We've had some I could go on and I won't bore you with it, but interesting stuff.
Yeah, EVPs in its simplest form, it's like I said, anybody can do it, and it'll turn a skeptic into a believer if you catch the right EVP.
Oh,
I don't know why, I think I've mentioned this before, but we've caught our best EVPs when they were unsolicited. We weren't asking questions. We were just recording and doing whatever we were doing, and whatever these entities are joining in on our conversation without us asking them to. And we've caught some of our best EVPs.
Where have you caught your best ones? Were they outside, inside?
One of my best ones I've caught outside next to a mine shaft. And me and my techie Christine here, we're getting ready to go hiking. And being the continuous Ghostbuster that I am, I had my recorder turned on my phone because these mine shafts are all creepy. Yeah. And we're going to videotape our hike, and I'm getting ready to turn my camera on. And my camera's dead. And I had a brand new battery in it. And Christine says, maybe take the battery out and put it back in. And I did, and the camera booted up, and we continued on a hike. Well, when I get home, I check my phone, And I listened to the recording on my phone, and when Christine said, maybe the battery's dead on the camera, or she said, take the battery out and put it back in,
Yeah.
there's a female voice, and it almost has a little accent to it, and it says, help. And there's about a half second it goes by, and it says, kill me. And it just talking about it, I have it saved, and it'll be on one of my episodes. And in that area, I could just imagine the things that used to happen in that area, because at the time there's over 5,000 people there. There was brothels, there were saloons. Chinese people were out there mining and being tortured. Natives were being out there. So a lot of things happened out there, and it just makes me wonder, like, who is this lady in this EVP? Because we're out in the middle of nowhere. There, you don't even have cell phone in that area. Where did this voice come from? So we went back probably 3 more times with recorders, over the next couple of months. Never caught it again. So I don't know, but it's a class A, clear as a bell lady that just says, help, kill me.
Man, making the hair stand on my neck. Yeah,
it's a sad EVP, because what is this entity going through? That this is ringing, whether it's residual or it's a request, but what is really going on there? It's scary.
Chris has got an interesting story. It's not really an EVP, but he's got a story about making contact with a young woman of questionable morals, shall we say, but claiming that she was murdered and sent down. I think Chris talked about it being a mine shaft, and there's of course no report of it. There's no body been found during any historical research in the area, but yeah, you wonder what they're feeling, what they're going through. Are they still in anguish and reaching out for help? Which is another reason why I want to find the answers.
And once again, the mine shaft, it's a mineral-rich area, so just it's crazy.
Well, when we get out there, I hope we can spend some time in one of your claims just to check that out. I mean, that even if you don't get anything, that's one heck of an experience for folks. So
yeah, it's a unique area because it's mostly BLM land, but it's closed, and the majority of people think it's private land. So it's unmolested, as they say. I mean, it's like stepping back in time for the most part. It's not people dumping trash out there, and you can find diggings in the ground that were dug in the 1600s by the Spaniards. There's Spanish holes, and there's 18th century, 17th century holes, 18th century. It just continues on through the era, and there's mine shafts, and most mine shafts are getting closed off because BLM has a drive going on across the United States. They want to close all mine shafts because knuckleheads die them. People find a hole in the ground and they feel the need to crawl in it, and there could be gases in there and stuff. So a lot of the unworked claims, BLM is just dynamiting. They're shutting them off, which is kind of sad, because it's a part of history. Because some of these mine shafts, you walk in, you can see where they started. It was pickaxe. These people used pickaxes and hammers and steel drills. And then you can see as it progresses, generations later, they may be using pneumatic drills, and you can see it just gets newer and newer the further you get back in there. And it's kind of cool.
That's interesting. Now, see, that's one reason why your area fascinates me so much. Now, Florida's a new state compared to you. I mean, for us, 100 years is pretty significant, just based upon how Florida developed. We really did not even begin to pick up here until the 1880s, which is kind of a contradiction in terms, because we have the oldest city in the nation in St. Augustine here. Yet, when you compare it to your area, where you've still, and Florida's crowded, let's face it. Even our rural areas aren't that far from everything, but you go out to where you're at, oh my God, you could get lost out there easily. And I find investigating that type of area super fascinating, because we just don't have that here.
Yeah, we have a lot of vast open spaces and a lot of fascinating history. Everything from the Spanish to Native American cultures, the influx of the Europeans that came over. So there's a ton of different beliefs, and a lot of weird stuff happens out here. So they call it the land of enchantment for a reason. And once again, Santa Fe is the oldest town west of the Mississippi.
Yeah, in fact, I think Chief Garcia even mentioned that in here too. In fact, I don't know. I don't think we had connected yet, but I taught a class up in Farmington, up in the Four Corners area, and spent a week up there. And God, I fell in love with that place. And I guess the Shiprock is up there in that neck of the woods.
Navajo country.
Yeah, I mean, and I wanted so badly to connect with folks and talk to them about everything from paranormal experiences like skinwalkers. That's another reason why I want to get out there. Now, I got a question from Spanky Maxwell, and he wants me to ask you a question. Spanky, I think you're talking about the light we saw on the camera. I'm going to assume that's what it was. He wants to know if you've ever seen something like this on anything you've done. This is in the same barn where I walked into, and Sherry was doing a active listening session with a spirit box and called my name. The reason I went there was I was watching, I usually sit at the command station and watch the cameras and whatnot. We kept seeing a rod. I don't know if you're familiar with rods, but but the rod wasn't horizontal, it was vertical. And it would come up during this period of time and it would stop on top of everybody. It would come out, then it would go back and stop, and then it would disappear again. But it was a vertical rod. Have you seen anything like that or experienced anything like that?
No, not. I've seen light anomalies, but never a rod bouncing from person to person. No.
Yeah, this was really bizarre. I'm not an orb guy. Dan Squatch is not on tonight, and Dan's my lead investigator. He's a big orb guy. I'm not.
There's a big distinction between light anomalies and orbs. Orbs. I mean, I've seen orbs. In fact, I just had a guy email me a picture up in Santa Fe. He took he's a retired PD guy from up there, and there's an old cemetery where they used to bury convicts from the state pen, and him and his partner out there driving around. And he takes a picture of a tombstone, and it's not a tombstone. It's just an old crooked cross. And there's orbs everywhere. The whole sky's filled with orbs. And when he sends me this picture, I'm like, you just got a bunch of dust in the air. And he goes, no, look closer. And there's one orb, it's football shaped, down by the marker, and it has a face in it. It clearly has eyes and a nose. Now, I don't know if it's pareidolia, but it sure looks like a face to me.
Really?
It's a really good picture. All the other orbs look like orbs. This thing is football shaped, and it's like right on the ground where the grave's at. 2 eyes, nose, open mouth. I mean, it's like, good one.
Well, and a lot of folks don't understand pareidolia. You obviously do. So the fact that you understand it and you still thought it was a face, to me, is significant. By the way, let's see. John Myrick is out there. He says hi.
Myrick,
Myrick, yeah. Jonathan
Myrick
says, "What's up?" So, but yeah. So, but these were long, and it also had almost like a hitch to it, and it bounced around. And the first moment I looked at it, I thought, well, maybe just some lights reflecting off of something. But then it would come and it would go and it would come at different, and it had nothing to do with any of the light that was in there. I actually went back in there with our SLS camera. I don't know if you were familiar with that. It's where the stick figures. And Spanky actually saw the thing go ahead and come to me and actually disappear inside me, which was kind of creepy. But it was really, really strange. And I was just wondering if you'd ever experienced, and if anybody out there has experienced something like that, I'd love to hear about it. But this was a vertical rod of light, and could not explain it, could not debunk it in any which way or form. So crazy stuff.
Did you guys get that on video, or is it
preserved? I was afraid you'd ask that. The DVR was supposed to be recording. There's nothing on the piece of equipment that said it wasn't recording. Everything was working fine. But suddenly when we went back to check it, and let me back up a little bit for a second. I actually went back and had checked it, and it was there. It was gone. The whole thing was wiped clean. Now, fortunately, Nikki Shreves, also with one of our investigators, and she's the other part owner of Doodlebug Dowsing, who is a really a level-headed skeptic. I mean, she's got to have evidence. She couldn't explain it. She took out her phone and she started recording it off the monitor, so we do have a record of it. But it was funny. The DVR, for some reason, stopped recording.
That happens all the time.
Yeah.
Somehow it happens.
But we did get it, and that happened to me in a place called you'll love this, the Pareidolia Bar Brewery. It's a little microbrewery. Yeah. And we were doing a daytime investigation in there, and I actually was filming a active listening session, and I heard a piano playing behind me. Now, there was only 2 feet between me and the wall. There was no piano there. And I said to everybody, did you hear that? Did you hear that? I think I talked about it last episode. Nobody heard it, but I immediately played back my video, and we heard it. I got it on video. turns out one of my other investigators, Jana, had gotten it on her recorder also. So we had two sources.
Oh, cool.
Went back to play that video. Its whole thing is erased.
Yeah.
Gone.
Yep.
Thank God we got it on another piece, but man, just crazy stuff. So
Yep.
Can you believe an hour's gone already?
Man, time flies.
Damn.
Pretty quick.
Dang.
Yeah.
We got a lot to talk about left, but we're going to bore everybody. We're going to have you back, man. Would you be willing to come back?
Anytime. It's great.
Good.
I enjoy it.
Yeah, I enjoy this. This is fun. Folks, if you got any questions out there, I'm looking there. Oh, yeah, my phone also died when I went to film it. Now, was that, Spanky, was that which one, Paradolia, or was that at the LaPorte Farms? Tell me. M18 Tank Destroyer. Chris, he says, get well soon. And, buddy, we mean that. We miss you. So get well soon. I know you'll be back next week, so we're looking forward to it. John Brinkley was talking about the rod, saying it moved with intent. So talking about that. This is what we need, folks. This show is for you. It's not just us talking, sharing our stories. It's for you. It's for all of us to get together. I mean, one thing I'd love to have talked about with Ike tonight, because I think we have a little bit of a difference of opinion on, but that's the collection and sharing of data. So that's maybe something we can talk about one other time.
Sure.
Because I'm a big believer in sharing. But at any rate, this show's for you. When you guys get on here and you ask us questions, that's what this show's about. It's about all of us getting together as we search to find those answers. And once again, Chris, old buddy, I hope you're watching this. If you're not watching it now, because you're probably sound asleep, because it's about 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning there. See you tomorrow. Know that we're thinking of you, and get well soon. But thank everybody for watching. Ike, any parting words for our folks?
Thanks to the guys that joined in from New Mexico, Myrick, Omar, Tonto Stacking. By the way, Tonto Stacking, his name is Adano Urbina, who's the new chief. He's taking my spot.
Congratulations, Chief. Congratulations.
All the New Mexico guys, subscribe to Indian River Hauntings, Larry's show. It's awesome. His partner's awesome. I hope he gets well quick. I enjoy listening to him. Thanks. I appreciate you having me on your show. That's awesome.
It was great. I'm just glad you're available. I know you were working and you had to come home early for it, so I really appreciate it. There's a 2-hour time difference between he and I, folks. But once again, do like the channel, hit subscribe, hit like, hit that little bell. Come back and see us again. Be part of this, because this is with Ike's show, IDK Paranormal. Give another plug for that. Go to his YouTube show, IDK Paranormal. Subscribe that and like it. But this is how we talk. This is how we create a network of folks looking to find the answers. And that's what it's all about, folks. So we appreciate all of you being here tonight. Christine, thanks for taking care of your dad's show. Wish we could have seen you on the other side of the camera, but maybe next time. And until next week, folks, join us next Thursday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, here on YouTube for On the Air with Indian River Hauntings. Thanks for joining us. Take care, and we'll see you on the other side. Good night, all.
Good night.